Just don't act like, don't forget what brought it about.
Right.
That's all.
And it's where people look for talent. If you look at these tech companies, they go to Stanford, Harvard, Berkeley. You think they're going to the HBCUs and looking for talent there? If they're not pushed to go outside their networks, they're going to hire the same people from the same schools and replicate the same wealth gap. We've got a 10-to-1 wealth gap in America. And instead of talking about that, we're beating up on DEI.
But we had this in your industry, or the way you represent. Women were they started two programs, big programs, like 20 years ago to get more women in engineering positions. And I think in 20 years it went up 1%. I don't think it's because they were barred from doing it. I just think people choose to go into different.
Let's be honest about how hiring actually works. When people look for talent, they go where their networks already exist. Tech companies recruit heavily from places like Stanford, Harvard, and Berkeley. They're not lining up at HBCUs unless they're pushed to look beyond their usual circles. Left unchecked, that cycle just repeats itself, same schools, same people, same wealth gap. And that gap is massive, nearly 10-to-1 in America. But instead of addressing that root issue, the conversation keeps circling back to attacking DEI. We've seen this before, even in industries that tried hard to bring more women into engineering. Massive programs barely moved the needle over decades. Not because women were blocked, but because people make different choices about what they want to pursue.
The complaint that I have over this whole DEI issue is that everybody thinks about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and it automatically connotates in a lot of people's eyes, particularly on the right, that somebody that's in that position must have gotten there because of a level of incompetence and what have you. It's not merit-based. My attitude is similar to the Rooney Rule with the National Football League, similar to with affirmative action. What the hell was the policy necessary for to begin with? Because we had a power structure in the United States of America that was unfair, that was unequitable, inequitable. They didn't give a damn, and somebody had to compel them to do the right thing conscientiously, and nobody is talking about that in regards to DEI.
You're talking about the past.
But they haven't changed enough. Look at tech. Look at how many African Americans, Latino Americans are in tech, which is producing out all the wealth.
But is it because they're...
That's when Bill Maher and Stephen A. Smith drop some uncomfortable truths about the left's DEI obsession. These aren't outsiders throwing stones. They were once on the same side of the aisle, but now they're openly questioning the talking points they helped support. On a heated episode of Real Time, the two take apart DEI arguments piece by piece, calling out the political establishment in the process. Buckle up, this conversation gets intense fast.
Players in baseball who are African American.
That's right. That's what I was saying.
Well, this would be a problem if they were barred from baseball, as they were before 1947. There's only 7% because they want to play another sport, or no sport at all, or do something else. They're not barred. It's not a problem.
I've been getting on them about this, is that, again, when you're talking about DEI, anytime you bring that up, oh, you're a DEI hire. You didn't really deserve it. You didn't really earn it. You just got it because of that policy. And I'm like, but you're just going to bring that up but ignore why the policy was there to begin with. That means there was a whole bunch of white people before there was DEI that were getting jobs that they didn't deserve.
I think the University of Michigan, one of the schools like that, had something like 200 DEI officers at a college, the most liberal place.
Yeah, that's excessive. No excuse.
Okay, and who's ever going to give up that job and go, well, this situation is better now, I guess I better fire me?
Maher throws out a question that makes people squirm. Are certain groups underrepresented in baseball because they're being excluded, or because many simply choose other sports? It's the kind of honest question DEI debates usually avoid. Not every gap is proof of discrimination. Sometimes it comes down to interest, culture, and personal choice, but that nuance rarely gets airtime, and Maher isn't done yet. He's just getting started, strap in.
We've got a 10-to-1 wealth gap in America, and instead of talking about that, we're beating up on DEI.
But we had this in your industry, or the way you represent. Women were they started two programs, big programs, like 20 years ago to get more women in engineering positions. And I think in 20 years it went up 1%. I don't think it's because they were barred from doing it. I just think people choose to go into different avenues of...
There's the studies show that African American young men and women are more interested in tech than even white kids, but they don't have the same pathways. We are denying reality if we think
so you're
that someone
they're being
I'm not saying that.
Once DEI-based roles are created, they rarely disappear even when conditions change. Why incentives? Critics argue hiring standards have slowly shifted away from skill-based requirements and toward policy goals. DEI started with legitimate intentions aiming to solve real problems. But over time, it morphed into a strategy instead of a solution, and once flaws become obvious, admitting mistakes and fixing them becomes nearly impossible.
There's the studies show that African American young men and women are more interested in tech than even white kids, but they don't have the same pathways. We are denying reality if we think
So you're
that
saying
someone
they're being
I'm not saying
denied.
that. I'm saying if you graduate from Stanford, I taught at Stanford, you get funded before you have an idea. You literally just email a venture capitalist, you get funded. If you're at Morehouse or you're at Spelman or you're at Claflin University, you think you could just email someone at Kleiner Perkins and get your company funded? No.
I think companies that want to make money hire the best people to make it for them.
Maher circles back with a simple point. Not every career attracts the same level of interest. Some jobs are just more appealing than others. Differences in representation don't automatically mean discrimination. Across many countries, data shows that when options are equal, people often choose people-focused careers, like education or healthcare, over technical or physically demanding fields. His message is straightforward. Not every statistical gap is injustice. Sometimes it's preference.
I don't disagree with you. I just think that we have to keep a watchful eye on things. Of course, for example, with the eradication of a lot of these DEI programs, right? Let's say, for example, hypothetically, there's 20 jobs that are available and DEI has been shoved aside. Now, when you fulfill those 20, when you fill up those 20 jobs and all of them are white, you got a problem. Because what you're saying is, oh, they're the ones that are qualified and nobody else is. Yep. And that's a system that used to exist in this country that you see a lot of people clamoring to return to. Well, and we can't ignore that.
Those 20 jobs would not go to white people. They go to Asian people.
Okay.
And here's the reality corporations live by. Big companies care about profit, not symbolism or social experiments. They want the best talent, period. That's what fuels innovation. For students aiming to get into those companies, the roadmap hasn't changed. Strong credentials matter. That often means top universities with demanding coursework, powerful networks, and proven reputations. Are those systems perfect? No privilege exists, but these schools still select for ability and drive, which is why companies recruit there. Preparation and skill open doors, not narratives.
It's not blacks.
Well, really, I mean, this is one of the
Asian Americans wouldn't even be in this country if it weren't for the civil rights movement and the African American community.
But we're talking.
Well, if you're gonna bring that up, bring up the fact that whether it's affirmative action or DEI, the biggest beneficiaries of both programs were white women. Let's not forget that.
But can we live in the era we're living in?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think it's 2025. I mean, this is one of the most liberal parts of the country that you represent.
Yes.
So you're saying in one of the most liberal parts, maybe you're right. I don't know. I'm just questioning it. That there is this prejudice against.
I don't think it's formal. I don't think people there at Apple or Google are saying, oh, let's not hire black people. I think it's easy when you're building a company to just hire the people you know, the schools you know, and it takes extra effort to reach out beyond your networks.
That's where Stephen A's argument starts to crack. In most workplaces, people don't rise because of favoritism, they rise because they deliver consistency, reliability. And results matter. Employers notice who shows up and gets the job done, and many cultures, discipline, education, and long-term planning are emphasized early, and those habits carry over into careers. When hiring is framed as entirely biased, it ignores how often success comes down to effort and performance.
Part of today's woke revolution, you need to study the part of revolutions where they spin out of control because the revolutionaries get so drunk on their own purifying elixir, they imagine they can reinvent the very nature of human beings. Communists thought selfishness could be cast out of human nature. Russian revolutionaries spoke of the new Soviet man who wasn't motivated by self-interest, but instead wanted to be part of a collective. No, it turns out he wanted to be on a yacht in a Gucci tracksuit holding a vodka and a prostitute.
This is the reality some politicians refuse to acknowledge. Top firms recruit from Ivy League schools because that's where highly prepared students concentrate. It's about efficiency, not exclusion. When the stakes are high, companies choose institutions with proven track records. Calling that discrimination ignores preparation merit and results the same logic consumers use when choosing reliable products.
The problem with communism, and with some very recent ideologies here at home, is that they think you can change reality by screaming at it, that you can bend human nature by holding your breath. But that's the difference between reality and your mommy. Lincoln once said that you can repeal all past history, but you still cannot repeal human nature. But he's canceled now, so him.
Even though this clip is old, it fits perfectly into today's debate. Like parts of the modern DEI movement, some activists believe policy can override culture and personal choice. Reality says otherwise. Discrimination exists and deserves real solutions, but replacing merit with categories doesn't fix injustice. It creates new problems. Skill still matters. If fairness is the goal, quotas usually backfire, fueling resentment and eroding trust.
A law professor at the University of Illinois, Chicago, named Jason Kilborn, whose crime was that on one of his exams, he used a hypothetical case where a black female worker sued her employer for race and gender discrimination. And knowing the extreme sensitivity of today's students, he didn't write the 2 taboo words on the test, just the first letter of each. He was teaching his students how to fight racism in the place where it matters most, the criminal justice system. But because he merely alluded to those words, again in the service of a good cause, he was banned from campus, placed on indefinite leave, and made to wear the dunce cap.
DEI supporters often dodge a basic truth. People choose paths based on interest, not policy. Different communities gravitate toward different fields for cultural and personal reasons. Not every disparity is discrimination. Forcing equal representation everywhere isn't realistic and often lowers standards while breeding frustration. Choice still matters.